Hey everybody, welcome back to Ask Him About Dyslexia. I am in a different spot as you can see today. We're actually at a beautiful little lake house in a place that is midway between where I live and where my sister and her family live. And so we have gathered together for a little family vacation, and she was gracious enough to say yes when I asked her to do a video with me. So she is a mom of two little ones and is into healthy eating and exercise, and she's even run a marathon. So, thank
Anybody
you.
can do it, by the way.
I'm not sure if I am up to that, but in theory, yes.
In theory.
In theory. So, thank you so much for agreeing to tell your story. And because every time that you hear another story, it's an encouragement to somebody, and people can relate to stories. So I like to tell my story, my son's story, my husband's story, and I really didn't realize that my own sister had a story. And
Because I'm not dyslexic.
right. So what prompted me to ask you if you would be willing to do this interview was you had a really strong reaction to one of the videos that I posted, and you were just really touched by it, and it led you to tell me more about your story. And so, if you would tell us about your struggles in school, like when they started, what kind of help you got, how you felt, um, we'd like to hear it.
Sure. Well, I guess I'd like to start off in kind of a non-traditional way. I want to start off with a disclaimer. Oftentimes, when I think about how I struggled in school, I almost start trying to blame my family and especially my mom because um, it almost feels like I was being neglected in a way. Let me explain. So, what I've been told and what I remember is I started off kindergarten fine, and then I even started first grade fine. And then about a month into first grade was when our younger sister was born. And that was a huge event
Right, because
and
you'd been the baby
disruption.
for a long time.
Right. And in our family, being the baby, it's not just kind of like, oh, yeah, you're the youngest. Like, you're literally referred to
As
as
the
the
baby,
baby, and
yeah.
that stays with you.
And by the way, I'm the oldest, so I was not the baby for very long.
Right. But I was 6.5 years old when I was no longer the baby. So I remember what, I remember being referred to as the baby and being treated as the baby. And then all of a sudden, I was not the baby anymore. And I was all excited to not be the baby anymore and to have a younger sister. But right at the same time, this was literally the beginning of October, and at that time, that was when you learned to read, and you're supposed to like go home and practice. And I don't remember like practicing that much. Like you're supposed to do it every day, and it definitely did not happen every day. What I do remember when we were learning to read, the teacher would take a couple of students, like 3 or 4 students, over to a little table on the side,
Mhm.
and you'd have your book. When we got taken over to the table to read with the teacher, I wasn't as confident, and so I was more hesitant. And I don't know exactly how I went from that to being taken out of the classroom for special education, but that happened. And I was in special education for help with reading and writing first, second, and third grade. And I was also taken out for help with math in second grade. I know that a lot of what my issue was the confidence.
So they gave you help, you got more confident,
Right.
and you were able to then be in the regular classroom from
Right.
then on.
And I don't remember a whole lot of um, like my memories of first, second, third grade. This is another area where it like I was neglected as a child.
That's totally not the case.
um, it's true we stayed up later than
Right,
most
that's
kids.
true. Yep.
Like I remember talking to other kids my age, and like everybody else is going to bed at like 8:30. 8:30. We hadn't even eaten dinner yet.
Things were a little different at our house.
we
Not
were
bad, just
definite
different.
night owls.
Yes, yeah.
Definite night owls.
Mhm.
Um, so I was going to bed much later, and then in the morning I wasn't given breakfast, and I didn't eat like when I started eating breakfast in college. I was like, wow,
Hmm.
this is. I wish I'd been doing this my whole life.
I did eat breakfast. I don't know.
Well, I probably didn't have enough time because I was so
You were too
tired.
tired to
You
get
know, it
up and
took
get
me
going.
so
and
long to get dressed, and then it's like, hurry up, you know, get out the door.
Yeah.
The bus is
The bus
coming.
is coming. All of that is a factor.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it makes more of an impact than some people may realize.
Yeah.
Because I remember having a hard time paying attention. You know,
Mhm.
when I was in the regular class in like second grade, I remember we would go through the spelling words, and like there would be like a story or something, and you're supposed to insert the words into it.
Sure.
And we'd go along, and when it got to my turn, I would have no idea what the answer was because I was sitting there daydreaming. You
You're too
know,
tired
I
to
was tired,
focus.
and it wasn't interesting. So I guess what kind of help did I get when I went for out of the classroom to the special ed
Uh-huh.
class? I really don't remember a whole lot about it, but mom told me later it was just working on phonics, like reviewing over and over and over again the phonics, probably to gain confidence.
Mhm.
You know, make sure, yes, you really are making the right sounds.
Mhm.
You know, you really are reading the right words. You have it correct. Just say it.
So I would like to know, like, how you felt about being taken out of the classroom. Did you feel like you were missing things? Did you feel like you were being singled out? Were you thankful to be getting extra help? How did you feel? Because a lot of times parents are worried if their kid's going to be taken out of the class that they're going to miss things, that the other kids are going to wonder what they're doing. Um, so, I'm wondering how you felt about it.
Sure. And I think that I have actually been thinking about this. Could you send me a question ahead of time?
That's right.
You know, how did I feel? And I think it kind of ties in with what was going on at home, where suddenly I was replaced as the baby. I didn't mind being taken out of the regular classroom. I was not terribly social. I wasn't missing my friends,
Mhm.
and I didn't really know what I was missing. You know, as far as I knew, I was just going to sit there and daydream for an hour or however long it
Okay.
was. So by being taken out of a class of 20 kids and being with, you know, just like
A small group.
3, 4, maybe 5 kids,
Mhm.
and having the attention of the special ed teacher and maybe there were 2 of them, I don't
Right,
remember
maybe an aide
exactly.
or something.
I got more attention that way.
Okay.
And so, you know, you build more of a relationship with
Mhm.
the special ed teacher than you do with your regular classroom teacher
Right.
because you have that, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
that
I
time where
totally
you're
get
taken
that.
out. So, and at the time, I wasn't like, I didn't realize that I was different. I didn't feel stupid. You know, I didn't realize my own shortcomings, I guess.
Mhm. And it definitely met a need that you had for getting something out of school and um, for attention. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'm learning a lot here that I didn't know. I was in high school at this time. Let's see, that would have been my sophomore year when our youngest sibling was born. So I didn't know a lot of this was going on. I was kind of in my own little world, teenagers. And this is not to make our youngest sister feel bad at all. She is an amazing person that we
She's the
love very
golden
much.
child
She's smarter than all the rest of us put
put
together.
together.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so we've talked about like how you ended up in these special ed classes and how they were very beneficial to you. So you said that you transitioned out in third grade.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So I think in the summer between second and third grade was when I started reading books on my own, like chapter books on my own. Before that, my dad actually would read them to us. You can imagine my dad, who is a man's man, all right, reading the American Girl books with Gosh and Golly, Ollie Molly, and all of it.
And he's a great reader. There's a bunch of books that I have at the house that I associate with him reading to us.
hmm Like he reads it and he enjoys it. You can tell,
Yes.
he's
And he
laughing
doesn't
at
seem to
the
mind reading the
silliness of
same
it.
one over and over again.
That helped get me interested in like, oh, there's stories in these books.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the dictionary.
Right.
Boring.
Or these like boring readers that we have to read at school.
Right. So, you actually had these books on your shelf that were about the Littles.
Oh,
and
yeah,
we
sure.
had a movie with the
Mhm.
Littles. I
Mhm.
had the connection of being familiar with the characters from the movie,
Right.
and then they're in these
Mhm.
books, and you had a few books that got me interested in. I can read a book on my own,
Mhm.
and in third grade, I was told at close to the end of the year that if I think they were going to do more testing, and so if I
Mhm.
passed my testing, then I wouldn't have to come anymore,
Mhm.
and I would just be in the regular classroom.
Mhm.
And so I remember like fourth grade being kind of a struggle, and I don't know um, if it was more different than first, second, third. It was more basics, and then fourth grade, like you start having more sciencey material and more complicated stories,
Mhm.
and like that's when I think we started doing book reports.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember kind of struggling,
Mhm.
and and kind of being weird of actually being in the classroom all day.
I don't belong here.
Like when's my break? When do I get to go? Go do something else, change the scenery.
Right.
Pace is a little slower.
Mhm.
Um, so I think there was an adjustment, and I found with every time that I stepped up that there was an adjustment.
So the reason that we had initiated this interview was because of the video that I made where I talked about doing an accommodations plan with my students that's written in their language. And when you went to college, you actually went to the teachers and asked for some accommodations. You knew what you needed, and they were super helpful. And so I want to hear about that. And I also want you to tell me about like why you think it's important that students are involved in their own accommodations plan and in meetings and things.
As far as um, the video, I remember when you talked about your son getting tested and then his reaction, do you want to know what's wrong with you? And he was like, yes. And then you told him, and how he burst into tears, and it was comforting and relieving
Mm-hmm.
to actually, I guess, be told like, yes, there is something that is hindering you from showing off, how smart you are.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, I envy that, because I never was told, this specifically is your problem.
Right.
Like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
know that I had confidence issues. Was it just that? I don't think it was. I wasn't told, and my teachers were aware that I was going out for the special ed help,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't remember them sitting down and talking with me about how they could help me while I'm in the classroom.
Right.
to get help. Like when I was in second grade, I remember that I would, my teacher talking to me about that I wasn't getting my work done. Maybe I had less time because I was being taken out
Mm-hmm.
to do the work. And so that was part of it. But then I had to take work home with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't crazy about that. I think that could have been handled a little differently,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Especially because you were being taken out to get the help that you needed.
Right. It's like I obviously have a problem with reading and writing.
Right.
So,
Let's not add
of course, I'm having
torture
difficulty
here.
with the paperwork that involves reading and writing.
Right. Yeah.
And math at that point, too. I was slow with that. All the way after that, you know, fourth grade through graduating high school, like there was never any mention about it again. I didn't have any extra accommodations, no extra help, nothing.
You managed.
I managed. I think I did pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I've said to you before, I consider myself to be a special education success story because I left the program. You know, I got the
Right.
help that I needed, and then I was able to leave and take the tools that I learned there
Mm-hmm.
and keep applying them to learning in a regular setting.
Right.
But then, when I went to college, it was a totally different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
There were some classes that I was able to figure out pretty quickly, okay, this is how I study, this is how I take the material that's been given to me, and I use it to get, you know, decent grades. And history is interesting to me in that it's stories. I like stories. Um, the part of history that I did not get in high school, which maybe you did because I think we had different teachers, was the more the dry technical stuff. You know, I am not so good with names and like exact locations and exact dates. I
Yeah,
get
I like the big concepts.
right, right, or I even like, you know, tell me the story of a person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, I can
Right.
follow their life story. What was their name? Without the aid of a story, like I am not good at just memorizing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where when I started taking the science classes, it just murdered me.
And there's no story with that.
Right. No.
Yeah. So what did you do about that? You
Um,
survived.
I cried.
Yeah.
No, literally.
You had some really hard science that you had to take. Um, we were in very different majors, and yours was very heavy on some sciences,
Right. I
and
was
mine was not.
not a specific, like you wouldn't think I was a family and consumer sciences major, which is really just a fancy word for home ec. So I was doing cooking and sewing and interior design and floral arranging and sewing for interior design and then
And like biology and chemistry, right?
with the nursing majors
And the like
and the
pre-med.
pre-med majors.
That's craziness.
Right. So these, like my first semester in college, was my worst, and then I improved every semester after that. Partly because I rearranged my schedule after the first semester so I could have breakfast.
Oh, there you go. Winning.
Then sophomore year was when I started. I started with the hardest class was chemistry. I literally, like this. I discovered that you could get canker sores from anxiety. And I would study. I'd go over the material, and I'm like, I didn't understand like anything that he was talking about. My roommate was taking the class at the same time, and she actually had failed it because she was
Oh.
a nursing major, and nursing majors their very first semester they take biology and chemistry together.
And they have to pass them with a certain
with a
grade.
C or better, I think. And she hadn't, so she was repeating it.
Oh.
So to her, you know, it's not as bad the second time through. And I remember one night coming back to our room, and she's sitting there with a couple of friends, and they're studying together for a next test. And like, I foolishly opened my mouth and tried to like ask a question or answer something, and like because I had such a hard time spelling the words because they didn't make any sense to me and spelling counted, I learned to spell them phonetically, not how you
Oh, to
pronounce
say
them.
them like the way that they looked.
Right.
Hmm.
So like if
So
I
they
was
didn't know what you were talking
right, so I
about.
might have said your name Pamela, you know,
Uh-huh.
instead
To make
of
sure that you
just
spelled it right.
right to make sure that I was gonna spell it
Uh-huh.
correctly because it's like I cannot afford to lose points just for spelling
Right,
these
I
words
actually
wrong.
know this answer. I know this one.
Versus, I think I know it. We'll write this down. Maybe it's right. Maybe you can have credit.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and you know, she corrected. You know, she was like, "What are you saying?" And so she corrected me, and I just felt so foolish. You know, then it was like, all
Never
right, well,
mind.
I can't like,
can't
I
ask
can
them for
even
help.
study with anybody else, but reading instructions
Mm-hmm.
is very difficult for me. And you would like for lab, I would have lab once a week, and you're supposed to read the lab ahead of time, and I would read it, and it made
No,
no
lick of
sense
sense.
to me at all. And he would even then demonstrate quickly, you know, the process of what you were supposed to be doing. And like that's still my lab partner, poor girl.
Bless her heart.
Um, what ironically, so we'd get to lab, we'd watch the demonstration, and then I was just a nervous wreck. I literally was so afraid the whole time that I'm going to have something blow up in my face.
Kill your lab partner.
Kill my lab partner, Bunsen burner. Woo, I remembered something.
Yay, you got something out of it.
You know, and we're supposed to get, you know, like this reaction is supposed to change color or whatever, you know.
It's hard stuff.
Why didn't matter, but the strangest thing, you know, I would dread lab like you would not believe. But lab was how I passed chemistry.
Sure, and that brings up a good point about that. Um, how like it's important that teachers grade not just on like paper and pencil tests. Some people are not good test takers, some people are not good at learning facts, but they might be good at something like labs or doing the calculations for lab or doing a report or like a book report or something. That there should
Mm-hmm.
be like multiple modes of grading within the same class so that people can show their strengths and it won't just be their maybe the only way that they're tested is the way that they're weak in.
Yeah.
So that worked out really good for you.
I didn't think at that point of asking for any kind of special accommodations. I didn't know like what else I could get um like build up the nerve or realize that I could get any kind of special accommodations until my junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And junior year was really difficult. So I had gotten through the horror of chemistry and the next semester I had taken biology. My grade wasn't really any better. It was like, oh, I got a C plus instead of a C minus.
That's pretty good.
But it still hits your GPA the same way.
Well, yeah.
I remember the anatomy teacher talked about he told about some student that had come to him and said, I need an extension to take this test. I'm not ready to take this test. Like I've studied, but I just am not ready. And that's how I felt sometimes with these tests.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had like our the next easiest test in the regular class, regular anatomy class, that I got like a B plus on, which like that was just huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody else who does decent in the class, it was like an easy A for them. But I, study to get a B plus, and I actually raised my grade, my overall grade, like 3 points in a week. And I got an email from my teacher. He's got over 100 students in his class.
Right.
And
you feel like a nobody.
right, I mean, I'm amazed that he knew my name.
Right.
He sent me this email and he said, I see that you did really well on this lab quiz and this recent test.
Mhm.
I think that if you work really hard, it's possible for you to get a C minus or a C in the
Mhm.
overall class. And that was huge
Right.
to me.
That a teacher had taken an interest in you
Right,
out of all of these 100 students and had
right,
noticed your improvement and took
right.
the time
It
to
was
let you
just
know
it
that.
was just a couple lines,
Right.
but it was immense to me.
Right. And that's a good point to make, whoever's watching this, that if you're in a position of authority and you have it within you to say a good word to somebody, it doesn't take much. Just a couple of lines. It can make all the difference
Right.
for them.
You never know how much a small thing is going
Right.
to make such a big difference to
Right.
somebody.
Right. So do it. You have
Right.
that within your power. You should do it.
Right. So I was like, I'm gonna go talk to him because it happened to me once where I didn't. I knew I was not ready. I think I had had a couple of tests, like all on the same day or within a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days, and it's just like
There's
I
no
don't
way.
have the time to dedicate to this. Like I know I need more time. Can I take this later? I don't remember, I know he let me take it later. I don't remember exactly how much later I got to take it or what. And then I think when I talked to him again at another time and I told him, I'm also struggling with getting the tests done. And so he said, what I can do for you is, if you think you need more time to take the test and if you have, other things, that are other tests on the same day.
Right.
So it's just too hard to take this big test in this one class and then go to the next class and take another big test.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you're still trying to recover from that first big test, you can take it outside. I'll send it to the testing center
Mm-hmm.
and you can take it, and I'll give you unlimited amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to take it before the class. If it's on the test is on a Monday,
Mm-hmm.
I would take it Saturday night. I'd study all day Saturday
Uh-huh.
and then take it
Mm-hmm.
Saturday evening.
So that way you had as much time as you needed to get through the test, and also if there was like a conflict,
Right.
too much going on for you to feel ready for all of the tests, then you had an option. Right.
Um, in another class that I took, it was a psychology class. I was a psychology minor. So this was abnormal psychology. I went and talked to the teacher about like what kind of special accommodations because those tests were really wordy. He would say he would let me he wouldn't let me take it like a day ahead or anything like that. He said that what I could do is I could come to his office like the class started at 8. If I came to his office before that and started the test, then I could start 10, 20 minutes earlier than
Mm-hmm.
class started
Mm-hmm.
and then go with him to the class and take the rest of
The
the
rest of it.
tests. So
It's better
that
than
was,
nothing.
well, yeah, it was better than nothing.
Right.
It helped.
Especially because it wasn't like you were, like you had some documentation to
Right,
show your need. It was just you knew yourself
right,
that you just needed some extra time,
right,
and you were doing all that you could, absolutely all you could, to study and learn the material. It just took you more time to take the test and make sure that you were able to show what you know.
right,
And that's a totally reasonable thing to ask for. Like when we talk about asking for reasonable accommodations, that's totally reasonable and the right thing to do. All right, so we've gotten you all the way through college now, and I want to kind of circle back around to talk about like why we ended up doing this interview in the first place, and it was because um, you had a really emotional response to the video that I did about how I help my students to create an accommodations plan in their own language. It's important that they understand what accommodations they have, and that they uh, know that the teacher knows what they have, that they know that the teacher, that they can go to the teacher if they're not getting what they need. It's it just makes the student more involved. Tell me about your response and like why you think that's so important. And by the way, I will have links in the comment section to any videos that have been mentioned in this video.
So when I was younger, you know, first, second, third grade, and I was being taken out, I don't remember ever being told, you know, what was wrong. When I guess when you if you're told as a child like you have this, like you have dyslexia,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it difficult for you to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then when you work, you know, it's like you as a tutor, you're there to help them. You know,
Right.
you give them hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I kind of felt, you know, or wondered like I don't know what's wrong with me. Am I just stupid, or is it lack of confidence? You know, do I just not feel like do I have too many anxieties, and so, you know, I don't speak up and show that I, you know, can answer the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because that still follows me, you know, not wanting to speak up and look stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I had known what it was about me. You know, why was I having these struggles in school? And it wasn't until like I was about college age, I think, um, that I realized that my brain operates different. So it's not just confidence. And I remember um, when our family got a computer that had internet, and our mom wanted to have email so that she could email you on the other side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me to show her how to do email and how to use the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember if I wrote the instructions or she wrote the instructions, but like the way that I explained it, like it was very simple, concise steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember mom saying like I can understand exactly how your mind works.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that, you know, you're thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I get it. I see exactly how you
Isn't
understand
that
it.
interesting?
And that helped me understand that I take so many things, whether it's a process and I break it down in a way, or if it's a concept. I don't know if that was how I thought, you know, back when I was 7, 8 years old. And so if somebody could have explained that to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, but just I don't know, and I I've just gotten like the sense that whatever it is, you have to work at it. You know, I have to work at it harder than
Right.
somebody else might.
Right. You know that about yourself, that you're just gonna
Right.
have
And
to take more time.
so when I think about like accommodation, you know, and why did I react to that video that way? Um, I didn't have that, you
Mm.
know, because I wasn't diagnosed with something,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have a sit down with my regular teacher. Progress that I was making, or how could I do better in the classroom. Um, you know, being in the classroom, sometimes like it was not fun for me because I was out of it. You know, I was
Right.
daydreaming, I didn't know what was going
Mm-hmm.
on, and then I felt stupid.
So definitely like knowing is powerful.
I think so.
It's better than not knowing and just kind of floundering and
Right.
wondering what's wrong with me, because kids know if they're different, and different isn't bad. It's just
Right.
different. Everybody's brain works differently. Some people take longer to learn things than others.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that I was different in that I was not measuring up to like the standards in our family.
But it is important for everybody to
Right.
find their own thing. And
Right.
you ended up it being voice. You like to
Right.
sing.
In sixth grade, joined chorus. Then I found out you could take private voice lessons, and I think that springboarded me. it gave me confidence.
Right. And it was your way to shine. It was something you were good at.
Well, I think better than singing is public speaking.
Ah, yes. Yes.
I like to
And
talk.
I can already tell she should have a YouTube channel because she is way better at ease and keeping her thoughts together than I am. So I think we about covered everything that we had thought about talking about. I really, really appreciate you, your willingness. I think if it had been the other way around, I would have been too scared to do it. But you're like, yeah, sure.
First time, what can go wrong?
There you go. So I just hope that you sharing your experience with our viewers is going to help somebody in their journey. And
Yeah, because I think a lot of times people are afraid to talk about their shortcomings.
yeah, and sometimes you feel like you're alone. You don't realize that other people
Right.
have gone through what you're going through or what you went through in the past. Um, so yeah, it's good to share what we've been through because
Right.
it's sometimes the Lord uses that to help other people. So
Right, because in watching your videos, even though I'm not dyslexic, there's still other things that I can relate to.
right,
The struggles.
hmm
Um,
yeah,
that,
the struggles that you went through,
yeah.
and
Sometimes it's like
yeah,
the same problem, but other times it's not. It's different.
right,
But just um, remembering back and,
yeah.
and
And I think that, like hearing about what other people have gone through kind of helps you to understand just people in general, to
yeah,
realize that you don't know what these people have been through. If they're
right,
not willing to do something, say, read in front of people, and you don't know why. Maybe they're dyslexic, maybe they're incredibly shy, maybe they
mm-hmm.
lack confidence. So yeah, I think it's good to, when people are willing to share their stories, because it helps you to relate to something that you've been through or to understand what other people might be going through.
Right, because we're
So
not always, we try to put our best face out there.
absolutely. Mhm.
Like people say that I'm such a good public speaker. I can get up there and I can talk and present my ideas. I can make them laugh or whatever. Um, but it's like, well, you're seeing me after I've practiced this
Mhm.
over and over and over and over again,
Right.
so I've got it
Right.
perfect,
Mhm.
or near perfect,
Right. Right.
and we have, I think that most of us, we have gone through some kind of struggle in order to find out what our strengths are,
Right.
and we've had to, you know, adjust things in our lives in order to find out, okay, what am I good at? How do I turn this into, a career? Or how do I take the skills that I do have and apply them to my life? Situations that I can't change.
Right.
How do I work through this problem?
Mhm. Work through it and then share it with others to help them too. Yeah. That's why I have this channel. So yeah, absolutely. So thank you for your willingness to be open and vulnerable and share your story. And it's been very interesting. I've learned a lot about my own sister, and so I will put links to anything below that I have referred to in this video. Let us know in the comments if this was helpful to you in some way. If you would like to hear some more interviews like this, let me know. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Say hello. 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 Hello.
So, here I go with the ums.
And edit. Okay, here I am.
Yeah, so okay. cups match our outfits.
Cool.
It was not planned.
Aren't we hip?
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever like sitting down and talking with them about how can they help me while I'm in the classroom.
Mhm. Oh. Okay.
It's away.
It's over there now.
There's something big sounding buzzing in my head. I am not a grammar Nazi.
And I am.
I am a thinking person.
We're still filming.
We're still filming. Anything? Close the blinds. You don't want to be in the movie. Stay out of